I would be lying to you. I think if I said that I've done everything so perfectly that I don't look back with some regrets, I would do some things different than I did my first time around. But I don't know anybody who hasn't stumbled and fallen. Right? Paul said, "Everyone sinned, fallen short of the glory of God." Right? We all learn from trial and error along the way. How do I balance it? I do my best to set priorities day by day in terms of what needs attention. I've made it a life. There's just some things I've decided on in my life that I'll do. And there's a man named Spencer W. Kimball. You may, or he was, he was before your time, I know. But he encouraged us when I was a kid to make decisions before the choices were placed before us, right? Yeah. It had reference to word of wisdom. Was I going to smoke or drink alcohol? His encouragement was make a decision before you're ever offered what you're going to do. I thought about that a lot as a kid, and I made a lot of decisions that I've been able to stick with through my entire life. Some little ones that are just what I decided to do. For example, I decided I'm never going to taste Pepsi or Coke or any caffeinated drink, right? That I'm not saying that's anybody's rule. It just happens to be my rule. I just decided that that's something that I can do in my life, right?
Yeah.
Well, one of the other to-dos in my life is I committed I would never say no to a church calling or responsibility. If God calls me, he'll qualify me, and I am not going to ever say no. If somebody feels impressed and prompted to ask me, then or to call me to a position, then I've always said yes. Therefore, the priorities and the balance have to be family and God and work, and you just have to decide, how do I juggle all those things? And it's kind of different every day. It's different every week. You have to decide to do your very best and to prioritize what's most important today.
Absolutely.
Again, that's not to say I haven't made plenty of mistakes along the way, but I know you can fit everything in. You want a really crazy story?
Yeah. Yeah, we do.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. If you want a crazy story, here's how this one goes. At my current work, there's a lot of FLDS girls who work there.
Okay.
All right. I have the utmost respect for these girls. They're so obedient. They just do what they're asked to do. They're such hard workers. I have such a great respect for them.
Yeah.
So one day we were late at work. We were on a back order. So it was all hands on deck, go down to the warehouse and just work, right? Just everybody's got to just do everything they can to get out of this back order situation. So at some point I'm tired. I hadn't had dinner and I'm like, I got to go home. I'm hungry.
Yeah.
And one of them said to me, well, I've not eaten yet. I'm like, oh, okay. Felt a little bad. Like, okay. And then she said, but you're going to go home, aren't you? Like, yeah, I probably am.
Yeah.
Anyway, to make a long story short, I ended up, going home before she did.
Right.
And then the next morning I went into work early because I'm an early guy, right? One of the first guys at work and one of the last. It's just kind of my mantra is just get things done. Just work and put all the time in you need to do to get things done. So I show up the next day and she's already there at work.
Okay.
Right?
She beat you.
Was that her normal time of showing up or no?
Her, kind of her normal. She was always one of those first guys, but she was late. She stayed late, got there early, and she had brought some treats.
Oh, wow.
That she had made for her team because they all had to stay late. And she had an hour commute to home afterwards. So I'm like, wait, you left after I did, you drove home for an hour, you baked, you got another hour in and got back to work before me. And so at some point I was saying to these devoted, hardworking, good people, I was like, how do you do it?
Yeah.
I probably shouldn't quote this on a podcast, but I'm going to anyway. She said, because we don't watch TV like you Gentiles.
I love it.
It's awesome.
That's classic.
But yeah, I mean, that's the way you prioritize, right? You just have to let some of the things that don't really matter and don't get you anywhere, you just have to let those slip out of your life, and we can find time to do stuff. We can find time to be productive and accomplish a lot. We just have to be more efficient. We have to be committed to focusing on things that really matter and prioritizing. That's the way I see it.
Yeah, that's an awesome quote. Got to not be a Gentile. Have your priorities straight. But I think it comes down to priorities. You know, you've seen that less object lesson where if you put the small rocks in first, then the medium-sized rocks, then the big rocks won't fit. Those are the big things in life. But if you put the big rocks in, the medium rocks fill the gaps, and then the small rocks fill the gaps, and everything fits in the jar, right?
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with you know, whether it be like life as a whole, you know, just in a business that you got to have your priorities straight, but then you go into life, and it's like if you I'll give you an example for me. Like if me and my wife, we notice that our scriptures are getting out of hand. We're not reading our scriptures every night, right? Even if we write it down in our planner, we don't get it at every single time, but we have a higher percentage of the time. And then same thing with like the gym, right? If it's written down, if it's planned out, it gets done a higher percentage of the time. But then at the same time, having those priorities in the back of your mind, like there's been lots of times where like someone needs me and I have to think back, zoom out to my priorities and think, okay, people are more important than me getting to the gym this morning. I'm going to miss the gym to go be here. So I think it's a balance of planning your priorities out, but also having that in the back of your mind. Like, I know my priority. If something comes up, I need to switch. I can, you know, I think that's a good example of that.
Yeah. And an accountability partner, right? If you let somebody else know what you're going to do,
yeah, it's
nice to have somebody that you can lean on and count on who can kind of hold your feet to the fire a little bit and help you along. And it's not in a negative, bad spirited way. It's, I want you to become the best version of yourself. So we said we're going to do it. Let's do it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
When I was studying for the CMA, which is a Certified Managerial Accounting Certificate, and then for my master's, I had to kind of do that. I had to take the priorities and be like, okay, well, I know I want to do this and this and this, but I'll do that after I get my 2 hours of studying in. If I study 2 hours, then I can do this or then do this. And you just you got to choose those most important things first. And sometimes you don't get to all of it, you know, all the stuff you want. Sometimes you don't get to watch TV that night. But sometimes it's what you have to do.
At our current work, we use what we call battle plans, right? A battle plan is at the end of every week, we look at our statistics and see, because key performance indicators, you probably use key performance indicators in your work, right? You're looking for those measurable, trackable, statistical items that are really worth noticing. Some things are not key. Other things are key. But in order to be an indicator, it has to be measurable. So at the end of every week, like clockwork, I look at all the key performance indicators, what my statistics are for the week, whether I'm headed in a good direction or a bad direction. And then you say, okay, I'm headed downward or I'm headed on upward tracking.
Yeah. And
then literally every week before I get started on Monday morning, the first thing I do is create a battle plan for the week. And my battle plan says, these are the kind of things I need to accomplish in order to keep my trajectory going where it needs to go. That's been a big help. And it's a lot like what you're talking about, right? Just prioritizing, deciding what needs attention, how it gets attention. Yeah. And those are things that are important. It's the way we kind of manage busy lives and still be productive in there. And I liked what you said, Ben. People always come first. Family always comes first. And at some point, we all need to just kind of blow up our battle plans if there's ever a need that a person or a family has. That's one of the things Nikel's so good at, right? We're driving from Mount Pleasant on Sunday, headed home. I just spoke at a state conference up there.
Okay.
Headed home. We have another meeting to make it to in St. George. Off the side of the road is a truck pulled over. with a couple of ladies trying to strap down a refrigerator.
Oh, geez. They need
Dennis,
a mover.
Dennis, exactly. Big Ben's moving. We should have called them.
Oh, well.
But Dennis Leavitt drives by. Nickel Leavitt says, "You're not going to drive by those ladies with the fridge in the back of their truck, are you?" I'm like, "No, I'm not." So sure enough, but of course, we made it to the meeting. We were not late. It just was not a big issue, right? Yeah. But still, it's just one of those things that, you always drop. We've got to, in this world, find a way to start taking care of people. We got to start taking care of one another. We start to fight and argue and have divisions among all these things. It's crazy. We're all on each other's sides,